The population of the Tomaree district doubles in the school holidays, but don't expect to see a doubling of police officers, just an extra two.
We've had a lot of difficulty over many years. We've been lobbying strongly to get a far greater police presence.
It'll mean an extra truck crew a day based at Nelson Bay's Tired Station. The Police Association says it's all in the name of better protecting officers, albeit temporarily, as they prepare for the tourist invasion and the potential skirmish.
Vandalism, skateboarding, as I said, alcohol-related problems, public nuisance, that sort of stuff.
And extra security guards will be employed to patrol Nelson Bay and Shoal Bay over the school holidays, a service paid for by local businesses. As for those two extra police officers, they start on Christmas Eve and finish on the 30th of January. It's a present that has to be shared with the Tilligary Peninsula, an area racked by vandalism and a community desperate for more police.
One patrol car probably won't make a great deal of difference, but we do welcome it. But it's far short of what we need in this area.
Adam McIlwright, NBN News.
We've still got to make application to both the state and federal treasuries to finance the rescue package, because the insurance was held by HIH.
After 5 years of operating at a deficit, the University of Newcastle has gone from financial dire straits to finish the year with a $30 million surplus.
We have a much better understanding of the various ways in which the university receives its money and is spending its money, and we have, I think, much better reporting mechanisms to allow us to understand just how the university is going during the year.
But the financial improvement came at a cost to staff, with the Vice-Chancellor slashing more than 200 jobs since his appointment in 2004. The move was aimed at reducing the strain on revenue, and it seems it's paid off, Professor Saunders today attributing it to being the clincher that helped the university to bounce back from a $15 million annual deficit.
The savings that we've made in our sort of staffing reductions actually will contribute into the future in terms of the financial performance of the university. So overall it will have a big effect.
Professor Saunders today confident the financial woes are a thing of the past.
It's important for everybody to recognise that having a successful financial outcome for the university provides a platform for us to be able to do our real job, which is really teaching and research.
Christy Carter, NBN News.
The Stroud Weir is the location for this rocky improvement. Tons of stone have been precisely positioned in the riverbed to give fish and other aquatic life in the Karoo River greater freedom to migrate along the waterway.
A lot of the native fish within the coastal drainages of New South Wales need to access higher salinity water like the estuaries and then move back into the freshwater environment to grow out.
The project is a collaborative effort by local water authority Mid Coast Water, the state's Environment Trust and the Commonwealth Natural Heritage Trust. Advice on the design of the rock ramp fishway came from the Department of Primary Industries, which is now monitoring the results.
At low flows, the water is concentrated in the centre of the structure, and then as the flows increase, it moves out to the side of the structure. If you have more of an engineered version, it's less likely that will be possible.
And if the DPI's catch and release work is any indication, this tributary of Port Stephens is in good shape.
We know that there's Australian bass and freshwater mullet and eels and bull rout and Australian smelt, some of the smaller species.
Gary Blair, NBN News.
No sleep in today for Joshua Blair, who was back to work after doing double time on Terrigal Beach yesterday.
Body's a bit tired today, but enjoyed getting through yesterday after that last race.
Going into the trials without the preparation he would have liked, Blair battled Australia's elite Ironman for one of the 15 spots that were up for grabs for the New Look National Series that kicks off in Newcastle on January 6.
Newcastle Beach always throws in the elements there, so we may have a wave. So 3 more weeks of training and hopefully a wave in there will bring me right back into the mix.
To the pool, and it wasn't the best of weekends for the Hunter Hurricanes in the National Water Polo League. They took on the Victoria Tigers in a double header in the men's, and it was the visitors who took the spoils. It wasn't from a lack of trying, though, from the home side, who created plenty of opportunities against the more fancied opponents. However, execution let them down on more than one occasion. 2 nail-biters in the women's, with Hunter losing both games by just 1 goal. The league goes into recess until late January. After wowing them on the US PGA Tour this season and claiming his first big tournament victory in New Zealand, Nathan Green knows all about mixing it with golf's biggest names. But Jack Newton's Celebrity Classic poses a whole different issue.
Got Dawn Fraser and Bob Hawke and a few other people like that. So, it's there's some of these guys can play. George Gregan's up there, who's a very good player.
It'll be a fun way for him to see out the year, one he'll never forget.
I know I was happiest probably to come home here and play in front of sort of family and friends and to continue to play well. So it was, hopefully next year will be even half as good as that. It'd be fun.
Fellow Hunter pro James Nitties was today unsure if he could play in the event after injuring his back at a tournament on the Central Coast. After leading, Nitties found himself in a three-way playoff at the New South Wales Players Tournament, and it was on those extra 4 holes he strained his back. Adding to injury, he lost the playoff. And Newcastle's Lee McKechnie has returned from Bangkok overnight with an Asian Tour card. Finishing in a share of 31st at the final qualifying stage, he'll return to the Philippines early in the new year for the season opening event.
New technologies make the nervous task that little bit more convenient, but not necessarily less tense. The Board of Studies website was bombarded by tens of thousands of students checking results this morning. It's a momentous occasion for graduating students, the culmination of 13 years of study and mountains of work. 7 Hunter and Central Coast students topped the state in subjects this year. Representatives from our region excelled in drama, business services, textiles and design, Maltese, information and technology and cosmology, while Merewether High School's Rebecca Kewen came first in New South Wales for food technology, much to the joy of her teacher.
I was over the moon. I was so excited. I was absolutely thrilled, but I knew she could do it. She really was a top student and she worked so hard. She really deserved it.
But it's not a career in the hospitality industry Rebecca's expecting to pursue. Medicine is being considered following a year off to sail after winning the 2007 Tall Ships Award.
And I applied for that through the Young Endeavour Youth Scheme. So I'll be travelling overseas and I'll be sailing from the Canary Islands to Southampton on a ship called the Lord Nelson, and that'll take a month.
Jessica Phyllis, NBN News.
Closters has been part of Newcastle's retail car trade for 72 years. Initially trading in Derby Street, the company opened up an operation in Tudor Street, Hamilton in the late 1930s, where it became synonymous with Ford. Since 1994, the business has diversified and expanded along Tudor Street, selling brands ranging from BMW to Nissan. A business with a turnover now put at $300 million a year, it comes as no surprise to Hunter Business Chamber that Closters has been snapped up.
Peter Dunn has been a previous Hunter Business Chamber award winner as Business Person of the Year. It's a success that he's been able to take the company from a position that it's now going to be acquired by a publicly listed company.
Brisbane-based AP Eagers' $61 million deal consists of $27 million for the business goodwill of Closters. The company's sale yards and associated real estate will be purchased for $34 million. It's the second time in 2 years Closters has looked set to pass into new hands after a Singaporean company's unsuccessful bid for the group. AP Eagers will require approval from each of the vehicle manufacturers Closters currently represents. However, it's unlikely to be an issue, with the Queensland firm already selling many of the brands, including Ford. Gary Blair, NBN News. A tour of an air conditioner plant room provided a look at a slightly different hospital operation for Health Minister John Hatzistikos during today's visit to the John Hunter. The job of cooling the 15 wards with air conditioning has been awarded to Lake Macquarie company Haslam Constructions.
Yes, it's fully funded. It's a $9.8 million project, a very large project, indeed larger than some small hospitals.
Wards will be progressively closed during the 12 months that the work is undertaken in a highly planned logistical exercise. The Minister gave credit to outgoing MPs for getting the work started.
But I give a lot of credit here to the local members, particularly John Mills and Bryce Gaudry, who are campaigning for it.
Some media prompting saw the campaign by John Hunter's nurses also acknowledged.
Last year I was visiting John Hunter to pay tribute to the staff who worked so tirelessly to help those people who came here from Bali, and it was mentioned to me by the staff then, and I indicated that I would pursue the matter, and I did.
And a boost also for the Mater with $3.4 million of state funding so the Waratah Hospital can recruit specialist radiation oncology staff. Gary Blair, NBN News.
On top of the usual magazines, bills and letters, today the Hunters posties had their hands and bags full trying to deal with a massive influx of last-minute Christmas cards and parcels. Whether it be on foot, bicycle or motorcycle, they took to the streets working extended shifts to make sure all those important Christmas communications are delivered on time. Last night the Hunter Region Mail Centre received and sorted through a record number of items.
Yesterday, for instance, we put about 1.2 million items through the mail system, and that includes all the parcels, express post and letters. Today we're expecting a similar volume.
Since the beginning of the month, the centre has sifted through double its usual amount of mail and 3 times the number of parcels. Australia Post expects to deliver more than 100 million Christmas cards, 450 million presents and 100,000 letters to Santa before the silly season's out. But while Christmas is just 5 days away, it's not too late to start sending cards.
I'd probably recommend that people have a look at the express post service, given that the days are starting to run out.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
Less than a week out and we're stocking up on these and these. We're being good in picking out some of these as well. But as we wind down, we're also getting well acquainted with these. Dietitian Claire Collins says Christmas Day is a time when most overindulge, often because alcohol loosens the lips and reduces the willpower to say no to that second slice of pudding. But she does have a suggestion for beating the bulge, restoring some dignity and helping those healthy New Year's resolutions along.
After lunch, when you feel really bloated, put on your favourite music and get up and dance, because really it'll create some great photo opportunities. You'll have a fantastic time and you'll actually burn some calories as well.
Doing the jitterbug to Jingle Bells for 40 minutes will burn off the calories from a schooner of beer or a can of soft drink, while you'll have to hoe down for close to an hour to work off a single vodka cruiser. It's going to take me around half an hour to burn off this glass of wine, even less if I dance vigorously. So Sandra and I better get shaken. To avoid the need for an all-night rave, moderation is the key.
Make every second drink water or a non-alcoholic drink, and volunteer to be the designated driver if necessary.
Jessica Phyllis, NBN News.
Stephanie Williams hasn't taken long to get used to her latest bit of gold jewellery, or her new teammates. As the national 800 metre champion, she's now an Australian Dolphin, our elite swim team.
Once you're on the team, they just make you feel welcome. You know, you don't feel like you're a new person. It's just like you've been there forever. Everyone is just so great.
The race which catapulted her into the senior team is still something of a blur. Williams was never really considered a winning chance, especially with Linda McKenzie lining up. And it was the former national champion who led for the early laps before Williams took control. Everyone waited for the 17-year-old to tire, but if they had any idea what she'd been through to get this far, giving up just wasn't an option. Having moved from Singleton to Canberra 2 years ago to develop at elite level, her coach left for overseas. Then came illness and a fading desire, before Ian Thorpe's original coach, Doug Frost, came along.
I was struggling to keep motivation and keep swimming, so it gets tough at those points. But you know, if you can keep pushing through it, it's all right.
Better than that, she touched home the winner, and in a world qualifying time, she'll represent her country in March.
I can't wait to represent Australia, to represent everybody. So it's going to be very exciting.
Jim Callanan, NBN News.
This was the simple snip that disconnected 6,000 Telstra customers today. For the third time in 3 weeks, one of the main fibre optic cables servicing the bay has been cut, and Telstra believes the last 2 interruptions at least were deliberate acts. Christmas shoppers at Salamander Bay were among those who couldn't pay for anything unless they were carrying cash.
People are going crazy. There's old people in there blowing up, and as you can imagine, it happens this time of year anyway. Something like this to happen, people are just going crazy in there.
Oh, very frustrating, especially with little kids.
Most ATMs went offline and some branches were forced to close, while others, which still had service, almost ran out of cash. It was a 5-hour disruption that shopkeepers could have done without.
The majority of our transactions these days are electronic, as you know. And if they can't go to the bank and get cash out, then there's basically no transaction made.
As well as Salamander, the disruption affected Soldiers Point, Corlett and parts of Nelson Bay, as well as mobile phones. Police have now been called in to investigate the sabotage. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Since Lake St Clair was filled in 1982, it's never looked like this. Dry, cracked shoreline where there was once water.
Currently the water level's at about 33.9%. I think it went down about 0.5% over the last 2 weeks, so it's going down fairly quickly.
The lake's storage has shrunk so much that for the past 5 months its 154-metre boat ramp has been unusable, sitting more than 20 metres above the waterline. Boaties instead are using this dangerous inlet to launch their craft. However, there is some good news. Today, Singleton Council completed a 23-metre extension to the ramp just in time for the Christmas holidays. But with the tops of trees already showing above the surface, State Water could be forced to close the lake to some recreational users if things don't improve.
If it drops any further and becomes dangerous, they'll actually stop access to water skiers. So it just depends on how much further it drops and if we get some rain.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
The departure gates were buzzing today, as was the arrivals hall, and according to airport staff, it's never been busier. Around 890,000 passengers will have used the terminal by the end of the year. That's up by almost 150,000 on last year.
Well, I guess if you look back to 2003, we had 214,000 passengers go through. So since 2003, we had a 400% increase in the passenger numbers. It's phenomenal growth over that short period of time.
Airport CEO Paul Hughes says people are simply taking advantage of cheap interstate flights.
The main reasons for our growth here at Newcastle Airport is through the introduction of the low-cost carriers, particularly Virgin Blue and Jetstar. They have made a significant increase in the volume of capacity, which now allows us to fly interstate to destinations such as the Gold Coast, Melbourne and Brisbane.
Adding to $13 million worth of improvements to the airport completed this year, which included the new terminal and parking upgrades, the airport plans to spend another $5 million next year, extending the apron to hold more jets. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
It was meant to be a winter's Sunday afternoon building a new cubby house along a creek that runs through Ellamore Vale Park. However, the 2 young girls were allegedly confronted by David Matchett, a 33-year-old man from nearby Walls End, who grabbed the pair and forced them into bushes. In police facts tendered to Newcastle local court today, it was alleged during the girls' ordeal, Matchett had threatened to kill the youngest child when the other victim attempted to leave the scene. While the girl returned, it's then alleged her friend was sexually assaulted by their attacker. Magistrate Richard Wakely today committed David Matchett to stand trial in the Newcastle District Court on that charge. During the proceedings, Matchett pleaded guilty to 4 other charges arising from the incident on June the 4th. He admitted threatening the pair with a long-bladed knife and with also detaining the girls so he could sexually assault them and also conceal the offences. The charges against Matchett have been adjourned to the Newcastle District Court in February. Gary Blair, NBN News.
Round 2 of the Jack Newton Classic, and some players were a little worse for wear after a night on the 19th hole. Others, like Frankie Barrett, were throwing caution to the wind and the fashion guide out the window. Former US amateur champion Nick Flanagan relaxed as ever and, despite the distraction, still managed to find the fairway. Dual international Wendell Saylor settled in for 18 alongside Bob the Builder. Big Dell proving he hasn't wasted his spare time. More comfortable on the sand and in the water, Cypress Lakes might have been the wrong place for Ironwoman Candice Falzon. New Zealand Open winner Nathan Green was proving hard to beat, but former NRL forward Matt Parsons proved a worthy playing partner. Sporting the latest fashion from London, it was saddle up and ride in the name of charity for the Hunter's own professional Cherie Burns. Having moved from the Sunshine Coast after 27 years, this year's event welcomed the most impressive list of celebrities ever.
Probably fate meant that we had to shift it, and it may be for the better.
Holding the event in Jack's backyard, likely to be a permanent move.
We're going to explore a few other avenues for the event, but at the moment I'm very happy to get the event on, bed it down, and then we'll review it.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News. While most of us would consider 40 kilometres in the pool over 3 days a huge ask, for Shelley Clark it's considered to be tapering off. The 25-year-old is looking forward to the jump from chlorine to the open water in Melbourne after finalising preparations for the national titles in the 5, 10 and 25 kilometre events. The Nationals will also double as the selection trial for the Australian team to compete at the World Championships, a goal that drives the university student.
Not many people get an opportunity to be on an Australian team, and if I have to swim 6 hours to do it, then I think I'll do it.
Clark is expected to face stiff competition in the 5 and 10k events, but will start as one of the favourites in the ultimate test.
In the 25k, it's going to be more of a mental challenge. There still could be some very good competition, and they are only taking the gold medal winner to the World Championships, so I guess we'll have to wait and see.
In the pool, lap swimmers are encouraged to keep left, but Clark knows it won't be that simple when she hits the water for the first race.
A tactic like leading would be race suicide, but a tactic of sitting behind and hoping they'll all die, that'll also be race suicide. So you just got to play it how it goes on the day.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
For 30 years after World War II, Doug Pyle was sworn to secrecy and forbidden from revealing what kind of work he was involved in during the war, even from his family. While he wasn't engaged in combat, Doug nevertheless played a vital role in fighting it through working in a secret intelligence unit and cracking Japanese war codes.
We had our specialist wireless operators collecting Japanese messages as they were being brought to us by the Japanese. Our signals were writing them down.
After keeping the secret well past its required 30 years, Doug decided it was finally time to tell his tale, and with a lot of help from his wife Nell, created the Ultra Experience. The book follows his life and service in the No. 4 Australian Special Intelligence Personnel section. A shoebox full of old letters written to his family during the war helped him fill in forgotten information. Doug says while writing the book wasn't an entirely pleasant experience, he's glad his secret life is now finally out in the open.
I'm glad to see the book finished, to be quite honest. Then now I can forget it.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
The skyline of Newcastle is set to rise, with the latest plan allowing for 25 stories in the West End. The Planning Minister says given the restraints of mine subsidence and a lack of land, the only way is up.
This creates a level playing field, everyone knows about it, and then if developers want to come in and they conform to the intent of the plan, then they'll be approved.
But it wasn't so easy for the developers behind this 26-storey tower planned for Newcastle West, which was rejected by council. Questions have now been raised as to whether the new plans undermine council powers and disregard current development controls.
The heights go way above the current development control plan that Newcastle Council has gone through the state government approved process to develop with the local community.
Height guidelines are just one aspect of the draft city centre plan designed to steer Newcastle's development for the next 25 years and rejuvenate the West End, particularly Hunter Street.
Now, I think the consultation on this has been appalling. It's been developed out of Sydney with limited consultation with Newcastle City Council.
I think Council's had plenty of input. It's a draft, it's not over. We'll need to finesse it, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of community input.
The plan will be on exhibition until February 28. Following the launch of the draft city centre plan, the Lord Mayor had an announcement of his own. Newcastle City Council has retained the second highest economic rating possible from Standard & Poor's, an assessment of Council's financial position.
This is an international rating. It's compared against corporate sector, government sectors, and it enhances the fact that and underscores the fact that Newcastle Council has achieved this very high rating.
But according to the Lord Mayor and Council's Michael McMahon, they still need more money to repair Council's ageing assets.
We're doing well in the short term. We're able to meet our commitments in the short term, but we need to have adequate resources to look after our infrastructure into the future.
They say that could mean borrowing money and repaying the loan using cash raised from a dreaded rate increase.
But we'll need an income stream to be able to finance that debt or fund that debt, and that means that we'll then need to reconsider the issue of the adequacy of ratings.
Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
It's the last summer this family will be able to camp at the Breakers Holiday Park, with construction of the new Caves Beach Resort due to start in March. The park, along with the Caves Beach Hotel, will be demolished to make way for 18 five-star style beach suites, 40 beach houses, a pool and a man-made lagoon. But apart from being luxurious, the resort will also be eco-friendly.
We're capturing all the stormwater and all the runoff on the site, recycling it back through toilet flushing and laundry washing.
He says Caves Beach residents don't need to worry about their quiet oceanside suburb being overrun by tourists.
What we're doing is just reinvigorating the area but not adding any more density to it than we currently already have.
But the resort is only the first half of Mr Saddington's vision for the area. He's now in discussions with Lake Macquarie City Council about developing the western side of the site.
A village housing outcome plus a medium density mixed use development which would incorporate the Justin Norris Swim Centre, which is a 25-metre indoor pool, Kindy Patch Childcare Centre.
Madeline Bond, NBN News. It's the second time International Air Parts, the owner of Aero Pelican, has tried to force Lake Macquarie City Council to buy the rarely used Belmont Airport under the Just Terms Compensation Act, and the second time the company has been ruled against. Mayor Greg Piper now wants the airport retained.
We believe that it is possible to reinstate an air service. That is certainly what we would like to see.
He says a number of companies are interested in operating out of the airport.
We'd like to think that the owner will be prepared to talk to council and to those other parties.
However, the airport's owner, Steve Ferris, says he has no interest in running the facility as it's economically unviable and has no immediate plans to talk to either council or the other companies. Aero Pelican has been flying out of the Williamtown Airport since it stopped using Belmont Airport last year. Madeline Bond, NBN News.
This is prime grazing pasture, when there's enough rain. But in the grip of drought, there are only two options: buy in expensive feed or sell off stock at bargain basement prices. Understandably, most rural producers look to government aid to survive. But Merriwell grazier Peter Bishop, even though his land is suffering the ravages of this heartless drought, has a different slant. Peter believes drought assistance should be focused on long-term drought proofing.
We should be trying to make the rural economy better able to handle the next drought. We shouldn't be propping up inadequate performance and just preserving the worst practices.
These might sound harsh words to a farmer unable to put food on the table, but Peter says drought assistance and welfare are separate issues. His vision for what could be done is illustrated by a relief map. The blue dots represent multiples of Sydney Harbour which flow away into the sea every year. The coins show where Australia's main agricultural production is centred. Capturing some of that water from the tropical north by dams or giant wells and diverting it south by pipelines and river systems would take decades and billions. But in Peter's view, it's possible, and in fact inevitable, if Australia's agriculture is to survive.
We're the driest continent on Earth, and we divert only a minuscule fraction of what countries like Canada and America divert. No dams means no people.
Drought is nothing new to this country, nor is it to the Bishop family. For 4 generations, they've learned to take what the land offers and to have a long-term view. So perhaps one day Peter's vision of water from the tropical north will become a reality. Jim Sullivan, NBN News.
Most dogs will eat just about anything with great abandon. But what not to feed your dog is just as important as what you do dish up for it. Some foods which are edible for humans and even other species of animals pose hazards for dogs because of their different metabolism.
Gastrointestinal upset, runny tummy, diarrhoea, vomiting, that sort of thing, that's not so severe. Up to the renal failure, your heart failures, your pancreatitis.
Chocolate and nuts, and especially chocolate-covered nuts, should definitely be left off your pet's Christmas menu. So too should onions, garlic, mushrooms, grapes and sultanas. And while you might think it's okay to snaffle the pup a snag off the barbie, not all meat is safe for dog consumption.
Especially cooked bones, they're a no-no, and things like chopped bones because they're very hard and they're very spiky.
And just as important is what you give them to drink.
Alcohol can kill people from poisoning, and certainly with dogs it can do exactly the same thing, and they wouldn't need as much of it as a human to cause severe problems.
So if you still want your dog to feel as though he's part of the festivities, try going for the more traditional approach. Come on! Jessica Phyllis, NBN News.
The likeable 27-year-old pushed off from Perth in August and has since skated 5,000 kilometres across Australia, setting a new world record for long-distance skating.
I've seen an awful lot. Dodged snakes on the Nullarbor, skated the Great Ocean Road, and here I am in New South Wales. It's an awful lot of hills here, mate.
He's so far raised about $35,000 for the disabled sailing charity Sailability and says he took on the challenge to brighten up his life.
I was a bit of a depressed guy, actually, and I woke up one morning and I thought, I'm skating to work and it's the only thing that keeps me going. So why not skate a little bit further? So I packed my job in, I started working on it. I skated the length of Britain to warm up for Australia.
Travelling at up to 60 kilometres an hour on his carbon fibre and Kevlar board, Dave has gone through 4 sets of wheels and 12 pairs of shoes with 1,000 Ks still to travel to Brisbane.
Believe it or not, a lot of people still don't believe that I've done it. I've got a documentary crew to prove it, and I've got a team of 9 with me helping to fundraise. And of course, the calf is the ultimate proof. It's absolutely enormous, and I think I'll probably join the circus after this.
It is pretty big, and it'll only get bigger as he heads north from Raymond Terrace tomorrow. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
He's scoured the heights of rugby league, but Mitchell Sargent says he's happy to start at the bottom again as he looks to resurrect his career. The Knights initiated the move to sign the 27-year-old country origin prop when he was sacked from the Cowboys in August after testing positive to cocaine.
Didn't really know where I was going with my life and that, but it's obviously brought me here, back to New South Wales, which I really love, and on the beach, which I really enjoy too. So definitely closer to the family and that as well.
And while his new club has strict criteria in his contract governing ongoing counselling and stringent drug testing, Sargent says the move south has allowed him to put most of that behind him.
I didn't really know what to expect in that and how the people in that would take me and the community, but I've had a few heckles and that here and there, but definitely a lot more support than the bad stuff.
The forward also says he's warming to new Knights coach Brian Smith and his pre-season approach.
I've been used to just getting touched up and that up until Christmas and then coming in and touching the ball, but we're doing actually getting touched up with the ball, and it's really good. It's definitely a lot of the players and that are really enjoying it.
Jessica Phillis, NBN News.
They're carrying Christmas seafood home by the boxload at the moment. The Newcastle Co-op is gearing up for the busy few days before Christmas as many hunter families convert from a hot roast to seafood. Prawns are the most popular item, and the Co-op expects to sell 15 tonnes of them in the next few days. With no local prawns available, there are farmed Crystal Bay and tiger prawns from Queensland, medium kings from South Australia, and a smaller variety from Wallace Lake.
The big ticket item is prawns, yeah, but also whole snappers hit this year. We've got a large variety of fillets, like for the barbecue, like gemfish, swordfish, for example. But yeah, the crustaceans, we've got fresh lobsters, fresh prawns. That's mainly what people are buying, yeah.
The fresh lobsters are from Port Stephens and at $65 a kilo are the most expensive seafood fare. But a range of good old-fashioned fish types are a lot cheaper, as well as being a fast and easy alternative to the traditional roast turkey. The Co-op's busiest day will be Christmas Eve. Paul Lobb, NBN News. The $50 million plan takes advantage of the rail line that runs directly behind the Glendale Shopping Centre. A station with 2 platforms would be built and a raised pedestrian walkway would link up with a bus and taxi terminal near the shopping centre.
If it's implemented correctly, it really is the key to hopefully a successful lower hunter transport network.
But while the council has welcomed the DA, the mayor is worried that it doesn't include the $10 million road overpass needed to link the interchange with the 16,000 people who work in the Cardiff industrial estate.
It is bizarre to think that you have such a massive workforce, potential customer base just across the train line, and they can't get there to make use of this new Glendale Transport Interchange.
Meantime, a small section of the new divided road at the Five Islands at Burrigal was opened today. Part of a $49 million project, the section just north of the Burrigal roundabout is now 2 lanes each way. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Day one of the school holidays and traffic on the Hunters main roads is already heavy as holidaymakers head north early for their Christmas vacation. Police say while there were no major problems today, it was slow going around the Hexham Bridge and north of Karua. They expect delays to be their worst tomorrow morning and afternoon. And with traffic steadily building, police are reminding drivers to obey speed limits and wear seatbelts with double demerit points now in force until the 1st of January. Driver Reviver rest stops have been opened throughout the region to help fatigued motorists and their families escape the traffic and refresh.
It's a fantastic idea. Yeah, hopefully it reminds people to stop and slow down and have a rest.
Oh yeah, it's a good idea, I suppose. Stop, get your rest, keep going.
While the Driver Reviver vans only opened this morning, volunteers are already rushed off their feet, serving free tea and coffee, as well as a few unexpected treats.
We get busy stages and you're flat out. Other times, maybe late nights, 8 till midnight or something, starts getting very slack, you know.
It's the 20th year Driver Revivers have been operating in Australia. The concept originated here in the Hunter from an idea of the Charlestown Lions Club. It's been so successful that several overseas countries are now taking it on. Madeline Bond, NBN News.
I'm hoping to be in a position to make a decision soon, but it will broadly be of the sort of densities that the site has already.
On the whole, Brian Smith is pleased with the work done by most of the squad, but he can't help but feel sorry for Chris Bailey.
Very, very impressed with what he did last season in the bits that I saw of him, and he's a great young fella. It's a bit of a setback for him.
Returning from reconstructive shoulder surgery, a minor knock at training forced a return trip today, with the operation expected to sit him out for up to another 6 months. It's 17 days most of the squad will enjoy off over Christmas, but once back, the push for positions really heats up. Among those making an impact after accepting an invitation to trial with the club is former Newcastle Rugby Union star Mark Tafua.
It'll be difficult for him playing proper rugby league, you know, as opposed to rugby union, but he's going to get a chance. In the pre-season games, he'll get a chance.
Meanwhile, Joel Griffiths and Nicky Carl head the list of injured Newcastle Jets, battling to be fit for their New Year's Day A-League match against the Sydney FC. Carl hasn't run since rolling his ankle earlier this week, while Griffiths carries a knee problem.
Every day it seems like it's getting better. We just got to play it by ear now and just keep working at it, keep monitoring it.
Jim Callanan, NBN News.
Well, happy Christmas, and Christmas is about the birth of a baby. My wife and I this year had the privilege of being in London for the birth of our granddaughter Isabel. And in a way that took me back to the first Christmas. Christmas is about the simplicity of joy, it's about the birth of a baby, it's about God coming with us on our own unlevel playing field and experiencing life as we take it. So I hope that with all of that, you might have a very happy and wondrous Christmas.
In recent months, a number of prominent sportspersons and politicians have revealed that they suffer from depression. And they say that this is a very dark and lonely place to be. One of the helps for people in that situation is to have a support person to walk with them. On this Christmas Day, I think God has provided us with a support person in Jesus Christ, born in the stable on this day. May that loving support person walk with us all through our days. And a very happy Christmas to all of you.
It was slow going through some areas in the Hunter, with thousands of holidaymakers heading north, although the traffic was nowhere near as bad as expected. Police say with the Pacific Highway upgrade north of Karua complete, the bottleneck has moved further north.
Tea Gardens is expected to be our problem location where traffic travels back into single lane going north towards Port Macquarie.
Police conducted 1,600 breath tests in the region last night, with 5 people arrested for drink driving.
It's still concerning that this amount of drivers still will not heed our warnings, particularly over this Christmas period where it's quite dangerous, where a number of accidents have occurred.
Madeline Bond, NBN News. A group bike ride came to a terrifying end for 5 people this morning. They were riding west along Macquarie Drive at Crowders Bay when they were hit by the 72-year-old female driver of this car. She had been turning onto Macquarie Drive from Tinkara Drive at around 7 a.m. Police say it's a miracle no one was killed.
All of them are now in a stable condition with fractures to most of their arms and legs.
Forensic police surveyed the scene today, trying to work out just what went wrong. Meanwhile, in Bonnells Bay, police are trying to determine what caused a 23-year-old man to lose control of his car, cross to the wrong side of the road and hit a tree.
The incident occurred here on Fisheries Point Road at 1:10 this morning. The man sustained serious injuries in the crash, while his 17-year-old female passenger remains on life support in John Hunter Hospital.
And a high-speed crash on Newcastle Road in Lambton at 2 o'clock this morning resulted in this mangled wreckage and held up traffic for hours.
Lost control of his vehicle and collided into a light pole. He was a young peak plate driver.
He's in a serious condition at John Hunter Hospital. Madeline Bond, NBN News.
Besides the presents, the best birthday wishes Newcastle's Will Ryan could have expected today was those weather reports. The 30-knot southerlies sound better than the gale force ones that had been predicted earlier, but this Academy sailor knows he's about to get his greatest ever sailing lesson.
The forecast looks good for our boat, and we've done a fair bit of training and yeah, pretty comfortable to see it.
Meanwhile, the husband and wife team of Jim and Mary Holly are backing up for yet another challenge on the Blue Water Classic. Sailing Aurora out of the Newcastle Cruising Yacht Club, it will be Jim's 19th such race, while Mary cracks double figures this year with her 10th appearance.